Okay, so we've done our wheels, and they look just wonderful, right? So now I think the next thing will be the steering wheel. It's a wheel type day. This steering wheel, I am not going to start with the one that I blocked in. That was really just a placeholder. So let me pull up my reference image here, which is this right here. Okay, I don't need the wheels up anymore. Go away. Okay. So the steering wheel, it's always a good practice to, before you start modeling, take a moment and think about how it's going to be constructed. First, we'll start with a simple version of the steering wheel, and the simple version is the one without a bunch of holes cut in it, because that complicates things. So the simple version, let me quickly, I'm going to give the wheels their own layer. That's not at all, I don't know why I did things, I'm sorry. Oops, let me cancel that. I'm going to undo. Okay. Layers from selected, double click. Okay, this is the wheels layer. So I can now hide the wheels. I can hide the dashboard and the body. All right. So let me also just hide those. Display, hide, selection. Oh, hide that too. All right. So the simple version of the steering wheel, as I would start with a torus. All right, and the torus, again, good habit to get into. We don't need that many subdivisions. We'll say maybe 12 and 12. We can adjust the section radius to about, something like that looks pretty good. Okay, I'm just approximating. I don't have specific measurements in mind. All right, so I got the torus in place. Next, I need I'm going to do this little center bit right here. Okay, and that's going to be a cylinder. And again, 12. I want these to line up. And then the radius, I'm going to hold down control again. Something right about there looks good. And then the height is going to be way small. Something like that looks good. Okay. Now I need to kind of define the general form, so that, oh, that's too far. Maybe something like that looks good. Or if I undo it and just move that up instead. Okay. That's roughly it. So now I need to connect them with those cross pieces. And the way that I'm going to do that, so you know how I just said that I wanted these to line up with 12 and 12? I'm going to immediately go back on that, and I'm actually going to make the torus subdivision axis 24. All right. And that's because, actually, I want this to be, the cylinder to be 8. All right. I know, might not make sense why I just immediately went back on my word. It's because I'm looking at these section sizes and I don't actually have to perfectly line up because I'm not bridging the whole edges, right? So the way I'm going to do this, and you'll see, I think this will be, I'm going to select these faces, so that one, and that one, and delete them. Okay? And then I'm going to kind of find where these line up. And I think it will connect nicely on this face here. So I'm going to select that face, and this face. Right? Or no, that face. I need to pay attention. That face. And that face. And delete them. Okay, so now, again, this is the super simple version. Now I can select, well, first I need to make them the same object. Select that, combine them. Okay, so now I can select that and that, those two edges, and bridge them. Huzzah! I've made a thing. Alright, so same thing on the other two. Select them, bridge them. Select them, and bridge them. So the reason why I went with 24 subdivisions along the torus and 8 around the cylinder is because I was keeping in mind the size of this, you know, the width of this kind of brace piece. And that's what I was adjusting. Is if I kept this at 12, then this would be a lot smaller. And if I kept this at 12, this would be huge and be a big taper. And I didn't want a big taper in this instance. And so from here, you can see if you smooth it out, it looks kind of weird. You know, from here, it's just a matter of adding some edge loops. If you wanted to cut a hole in it, you could. You know, I wouldn't do circular holes this way because it's already at an angle. And that makes things a little bit trickier if you're trying to cut circular holes at an angle. But, you know, as far as a nice, simple, down, dirty steering wheel, I think that's looking pretty good. Okay, you could still probably stand some more edge loops. You know, like you'd want some on the side here. Whoops, edge. And then insert edge loop. And I'm going to do equal distance from edge, and we'll do one there, one there. Whoops, not there. Not there. Zoom in. One there. Make sure we get all of the bits and bobs. One there. Nope. Nope. Zoom in. There we go. And I'm being pretty loose with exactly, you know, even distances and all that, but I think you get the idea on that one. Okay, so that's a simple one. We'll do a more complicated one here in just a second. We've got the simple version of this. I'm going to delete it because I want to do the complicated version. This will start much the same way, as I will add a torus, and we will set, I'll keep the radius at 1. I'm not going to worry about the size in relation to the car right now. I can scale the whole thing down later. But I will adjust the section radius. I'll hold down control, something like 0.1. I know this is slightly smaller than the last one, but that's fine. Subdivisions, the height, I can probably be good at 12. And axis, I'll put to 24. These may change in my practice. I changed them a few times. I'm not going to do anything else with this torus right now until the end. Next, I need the center cylinder. Okay. So we will set that to 12 for now. Radius. Can bring that down. Again, I'm highlighting the word radius, middle clicking and dragging in the viewport. And then hold down control if you need finer tune control. But look, I think 0.2 works just fine. Height. Bring that way down. Way down. 0.02 looks pretty good. Okay. Now I'm going to bring this torus up. Right about there looks good. Alright, so now what we need to do is we need to define this. Okay. I want to do this, I want to create this shape on the plane because that's a lot easier to position and cut the holes, right? But I need to make sure I need to know what size, what that length needs to be. So I'm going to block it in first. All right, and I'm going to do this. I'm not even going to go into face mode or anything. I'm just going to scale it this way. Okay, so I'm going to scale it down, kind of get it roughly what I think it needs to be, and it's the length that I'm most concerned about. Something like that looks good. Okay, so now I need to position it. So we'll rotate it. And, whoops, bring it up like that. Maybe move it down a little bit. And move it So I just needed to kind of touch both parts. It looks like I got really close. We maybe go slightly shorter. So I'm just going to adjust this, let's see, the X scale? Nope, not the X scale. The Z scale, there we go. All right, and it looks like 0.94 looks like it's going to get me where I want to be. Oops. There we go. Yeah, that'll work. So 0.94 is the length that I'm going for. So, you know, I can actually just clear the rotation, and that'll be in the... I'll clear the translate values as well. Okay. And then I'm going to select my torus and my cylinder, and I'm going to hide them. So display hide, selection. So I can just focus on this piece right here. Be kind of a review of last week and the cutting holes in things. But before I do that, I want to get the general shape of this established, all right? So if we look at our reference, there is a little bit of a taper. Okay, so that's what I want to establish first. So I'm going to go into face mode. I'm going to select this face, and actually, I'm going to delete all of the faces except for the top one. I just want to work with on a plane right now. Okay, and then I can, whoops, I'll go to object mode. That's good. Actually, I'm going to center my pivot and then snap it to the grid so it is on the grid floor. All right, I'm just going to work with the plane because then I can extrude everything and the holes will be nice and even. It's just easier to work on a plane for now. All right, so back to edge mode. I want to establish that taper. So I'm going to select that edge and I'm just going to scale it down. Something like that. I'm not being super picky here. Now what I need to do is, let's grab my reference, is I want to start laying out the groundwork so I can put these holes in here. If you remember, last week I like to cut the holes with 8-sided circles because it works really well with four polys in a square. But I don't want, or let me say it this way, I want to keep an edge around the perimeter because it'll allow me to add edge loops and control loops and define that edge nicely. So, that in mind, in edge mode, I'm going to bring up my insert edge loop tool, say multiple edge loops. I'm going to set this to 3. Okay. And I will add them in that direction. And then I'm going to scale these away from each other. All right, something like that looks pretty good. All right, and now I need to add edges across so I can define where my circles are going to be. And the number that I want, because I want to keep some on the edges. Okay, so I think I'll do that first. So I'm going to do, relative distance from edge, and we'll do one here. We'll do one here. Okay. And now for these circles, we know we want kind of 3 edges to define the borders of the circle. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3. I'm going to use that same border edge for the next circle. So 4, 5, 6, 7 is what I want. Hopefully that makes sense. If not, it will become clear momentarily. So multiple edge loops, number of edge loops 7, just like that. Okay. So now when I add my faces, it's going to be, I'm going to delete those faces and add a circle, delete these faces and add a circle, and then delete these, and then delete these faces and add the circle, or add the circle first. Okay. Let me turn off snapping. I don't need that on. So now I need to add my circle. So I'm going to add a cylinder. I'm going to set the subdivision axis to 8. We can bring that radius way down. Whoops, something like that will work for now. I'm also going to jump over to my top view. I should be working this anyway. You can see my camera's in the way, so I'm just going to go to view and, or excuse me, not view, show. I'm going to uncheck cameras. Okay. I'm also going to turn on wireframe unshaded, which is this little button right up here, so I can keep track of where all of my edges and vertices are. All right, so that radius looks like it can come up a little bit, something like, we'll keep it at 0.1, just because I'm pretty sure that's going to, I don't know, we'll go 0.9. Okay. Now I need to delete, we'll bring that height way down. We can delete all of the faces that we don't need, which are all of those, right? We just need that top circle. I'm going to recenter my pivot and snap that circle down to the grid. All right, so it's on the same plane as the rest of my brace. Next, I want to select these faces, and I'm going to extrude them and just scale them out a little bit. Oops, I want to scale from the center. There we go. Okay, again, it's just going to give me that control face loop, and it's easier to add it now than later. Okay, because now I can go in and, oh, it looks like I've got extra faces in there. So I can delete those and delete these inside faces here too. So I just have that face loop. That's really all I need. Whoops. I think I've got another face hidden in there. Come on. What? Give me this. And then face. And get rid of that. Okay. So now we've got my pivot centered on the circle. Looks like, let me turn off my grid snapping. Just want to make sure I don't have, whoops. There we go. Okay. So I've got it centered right there. That's where one of the holes is going to be. I'm now going to duplicate it. No, excuse me, object. Duplicate it, and with my point snapping on, we'll snap it to the center there. And I will duplicate it one more time, snap it to that intersection. Now I can select them all and combine them. Okay, so now they're all one object. Oops, excuse me. One thing I want to do first is I want to size these. Okay, on my reference, you can see the holes get slightly larger as they go towards the center. I want to reflect that. So I'm going to select that first one, and we can set the scale to, we'll go 0.8. We'll select the second one, and we'll go to the scale of 0.9. And we can leave that last one at 1. It's a nice progression there. Now I can combine them all. So mesh combine. Okay, so now it's going to be just deleting faces and bridging. So I'm going to select and delete those faces. I don't want to delete these faces now too, because I'll lose this edge. But I can delete these. Delete. Okay. Now you'll also notice that, oops, these faces are black, which means that the normals need to be reversed. So I will select all of them now, mesh display, reverse the normals. Okay, all the shading is right. And now it is just a matter of bridging. Oops, okay. So it doesn't like that, so I have to do one first. Now I can bridge the rest. Okay, just like that. Same thing over here. Bridge that. Deselect the side edges. And G to repeat the last action. And then the same thing here in the center. Bridge, deselect, and bridge. Cool, so I've got the outline of the piece looking good. Now I just need to give it some thickness. So I'm going to select the faces and extrude the face, and I'm just going to move it, oops, turn off snapping, and I'm just going to move it up a little bit. And there's my piece. Okay, and turn off shaded on wireframe unshaded, and there we go. So now I can go back and show the rest of my, oops, I don't need to see that. And actually we can delete that steering wheel because that's stupid. And you can hide that. Oops, hide that. All right. So now what we need to do is we need to get this in position. So I'm going to rotate it. And I'm going to move it. I'm just going to move it along the Z and the Y. All right, I just need to move it in that direction. And I want to position it with the steering wheel here. So let's see. I think I will I think we probably want it kind of going into this face, so turn on the wireframe unselected. We just need to rotate that a little bit more. Move it up. There, that looks good. Yeah, that'll work. So the next thing that I want to do is I'm going to duplicate these. So I need 2 more of these, right? And instead of actually going through and making them or hitting Command D to duplicate and then manually repositioning them, I can use duplicate special. Okay, but first I need to center my pivot. So I'm going to turn on grid snapping, hold down the D key to move my pivot, and I want to move it right to the center of my scene, right? I turn off grid snapping. And now I can go to Edit, Duplicate, Special. Bring up my options. I'm going to reset the tool to make sure I don't have anything weird kind of baked in there. Copy is fine. And I'm just going to rotate it 90 degrees around the Y-axis. And I want 2 more copies. And click Duplicate Special. Okay. And now I've got all of my pieces in place. So now we need to connect them to the center cylinder. And if we look at our reference, we've got a pretty decent gap between the two. It's not going to be perfect here. Okay, these should probably be a little bit smaller, a little skinnier. But that's okay. But we will still have... Okay. So I'm going to add a lot more subdivision to the cylinder, and I haven't done anything to the cylinder, so I can still adjust the subdivision axis. And I need the number of edges to line up, right? Because this plate was created with 5 edge loops, and right now it easily lines up with 3. If I went to 5, then the things wouldn't really work too well. So I'm going to go to 16 here. So now, let's see, this would be 1 here and here. That would be there, there, and there. Okay, we're going to go to 24. See, this would be there. Maybe I want 20. There, there, and there. Yeah, we'll do 20. So I've got that more or less lined up. I'm going to delete these faces. So this is just like with the simple steering wheel. So I'm going to delete the faces. Whoops. Delete the faces I don't need. And then I need to delete these faces. And then we need to delete the faces on these pieces, but we should probably, now's a good time to make sure these are all the same object, right? So select them all and combine. Good. Now I can delete these faces. So select and delete. Select and delete. There we go. And now we just have to bridge. Bridge, you could also target weld. Do I want to target weld? I think I'd rather bridge. We'll see how bridge works. Fingers crossed. That didn't do anything. Oh, I see. No. What did that do? Okay. So when I bridge, you can see that it twists a little bit. I don't want that. You know what? I will target weld anyway. It's fine. So target weld, you go to vertex. And I know I've covered this before, but just as a refresher. Go to vertex, and we'll select one vertex. Shift right click. And then we've got, I was blind to this thing for whatever reason. I can never find where it is. You go to merge vertices and then target weld tool. Right? You can also access it in the mesh tools, target weld. There it is. And so the way that this works, you select one vertex, and then you click and drag onto where you want it to merge, and then it will connect. Okay? And so I'm just going to do that all the way around here until everything lines up nicely. Okay. So now that connects nicely, and then it's just going to be the same thing on the other two. So I will pause it and then come back. It is now connected, and if we were to hit 3 on the number pad, you can see, I'm going to turn that off. That's looking pretty good, and we're maintaining these perfect circles in the center. I will also, I'm going to add a little bit of detail to this center bit here. Here's a quick way to select when you've got a cylinder and you've got all these triangles. If you want to select all of these faces, a quick way to do that is select that center vertex and then command right click will bring up your selection menu. And then you can go two faces and two faces. So that's going to convert the selection to the faces. And in this case, it will convert that selection to whatever faces are touching the vertex that you have selected. Okay, so you can select that. And then I'm going to extrude it, scale it down just along that plane a little bit. And then I'm going to scale it again and move it in a little bit more and extrude it and scale it just a touch more. Okay. Extrusions are really easy ways to add a little bit of extra detail like that. Came up as if we wanted to make this all quads, because quads are better than triangles. How would I do that? So on the cap of a cylinder, I'm okay with a bunch of triangles like this, but if you really wanted these to be all quads, here's how I would do it. Okay, first I would delete all of those. Oops, and not that. I'll leave that alone. Okay, so I deleted all the triangles on the top, and the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to bridge across. And I like to keep my faces as square as possible. I'll bridge those. Okay, and then I need to look here on the side and figure out how many edge loops I need going across the other way. So you might be tempted to just count all of these edge loops, but if we connect here, then we're leaving a triangle in the corner. We don't want that. So I'm going to skip that one, and I'm just going to add in 3. So I'll set my divisions to 3. Okay. And now I can bridge those. And I can bridge those. Okay, and then that just leaves me with quads in the corners that I can fill the hole. Just like that. And now I've got all quads in the center there. This little bit of this, it's probably the toughest little bit of this, is getting this part, kind of the frame of the wheel, lining up with the outside of the wheel. And I don't have a great solution while still keeping this simple and within the realm of, basics and not spending another hour on this. The short answer is that the way this is going to be mounted on the car, you're never going to see this part. But not doing it just because you're not going to see it isn't always the best answer. But here's what I would do. Is first I want these faces to kind of line up. So I'm going to select this torus and I'm going to rotate it. So right now it's at 24 subdivisions, okay? This requires just a little bit of math, but I want to rotate it. So instead of this edge loop being at the center, I want the face or the edge to be at the center. So the way that you do that is you take 360 degrees, okay, that's a circle. You divide it by 24, and that comes out to 15. Okay. So each edge loop is 15 degrees. But that will just bring the next edge loop over. So we need to divide 15 by 2, which is 7.5. So we rotate this torus 7.5 degrees. And now we've got that lined up there. Okay. So now what you can do is delete that face, and then I can select this edge, extrude it, maybe scale it in a little bit, scale it in that way. Okay, and maybe I'll extrude it again. Okay. And it's not a perfect solution without adding a bunch more edge loops. But it is a solution. And it appears as though I got a little carried away here. So let's not do that. So I'm going to move that down and do that whole hide the crime thing inside where you can't see it. You'll never know. Okay. So yeah, that's kind of what I would do there. I will also now select those two and group them together. We'll call this steering wheel group, and I haven't named these, so this is going to be steering wheel center, and this is going to be steering wheel ring, just so I know what it is. Okay, so now I've got the whole group. You want to make sure you have the whole group selected. So now we need to position it. So we can bring this up. I'm going to rotate this. Let's see, we need to rotate it like 90 degrees. Whoops, negative 90 degrees. And then we also need to rotate it this way. Okay. We'll position it and scale it down. Whoops, not that way. Let's move it first. Move it right about there. And we need to scale the whole thing down. It's a little bit large. That looks... Let's look at this from the side view here. And again, hide my camera. Right about there. Scale that down a little bit more. Okay, I'm going to leave it a little bit off the dashboard because We can hide that for a second. We need the steering column, or at least an approximation thereof. So let me select this inside bit, go to faces, or actually do vertex, shift right, or command right click to faces. And then we're going to extrude, scale it down a little bit. And then I'm going to repeat that, scale down a little bit more, and then extrude again, move it out a little bit, and once more for good luck, extrude and move it back. So there's the steering column, and we will actually need one more edge loop right there just to keep that corner sharp. Okay. So now we can turn back on all of that. And there we go. We have a steering wheel and some wheels on our car. Cool. We're getting there. I know there's a lot of work left to do, and we'll get kind of close. We won't get a ton of detail, at least in this class, because we do need to move on to materials and texturing. But we've got another, I believe, a week of working on the car, maybe a week and a half. So we will get, some more details in there. We'll get the seat in. We'll get maybe some like a speedometer and some rivets on the car. Make it a little bit more interesting than what it currently is. So yeah, that's it for this week.